and it's the Atari 8-bit podcast.
And I had gone over to my guys in the manufacturing operation, and I said, you know what, they don't know you're here. Keep working until you don't get a paycheck anymore.
I'm Kevin Savitz, and this is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. Leslie Wolf was a product manager at Atari from 1981 through 1984. She managed the design and development of educational hardware and software products such as Atari Logo and AtariLab. In this interview, we talk about Dr. Pricilla Laws, whom I previously interviewed. This interview took place May 15th, 2015.
I talked to Pricilla the other day about AtariLab, and she kept mentioning your name, and so I was just like, okay, I need to talk to Leslie now.
Did you ever find the article in the Atari magazine on the AtariLab?
Yes, I've looked at several. I found one in the Atari Connection, which is where I got her name, actually. And then you sent me the one in Antic, which I had seen before, but it's been a while. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was laughing. I saw the picture of her then and the picture of her now. It's like, oh, my God.
Yeah, except for the hair color. It's the same person for sure.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just looked like such a young kid at that point in time.
Looks like she's having fun, though. She's just like, yeah, me and my team, we just decided to do this thing. We hooked up the sensors, and it happened. Like, cool. And she had, like, a kid who did the software was between 8th and 9th grade. When he did the AtariLab software, he just did it as a summer project. Yeah. So, it's kind of amazing. So I would like tell me how you got started at Atari. How'd you get that job?
Well, I graduated from Syracuse, and I had sold all my computer time because I figured I would never need to be on a PDP-11 or anything, so I never did any computer work at all. And went to work in New York City, supposedly as a photographer, but I ended up managing their new software installation and troubleshooting a program to sell life insurance.
Okay.
So when I moved to California, I said, okay, I'll go back and I'll become a photographer, and that wasn't paying anything. So I said, all right, I'll go back into computers. And had two job offers, one from HP and one from Atari. HP people I'd been here for 7 years doing the same job, so-and-so. And then, of course, Atari was brand new and a ton of stuff going on. And I said, okay, I'll go to work for Atari. Mm-hmm. So I joined them, actually in their data processing department first. And then had the opportunity. I was doing most of their typing for the marketing department. Okay. And they had some openings, and I had an opportunity to move into the marketing as a project manager. Uh-huh. And it was during a lot of the heyday, but a lot of the time where we were downsizing too, so I would take my projects and run and try and find a new home. And a new department.
Give me an example.
Well, so let's see. I had all the projects I was working on, and I would go from vice president to vice president to see who was going to have the budget to keep me and the projects alive. And let's see, I was even under finance there for a while. I was under marketing. I was under engineering.
So, what kind of projects were you shopping around?
I had Atari Logo, and AtariLabs were two of my biggest ones. I managed a lot of other programs during my years there, but those were the two biggest that we would have, the most fun with, of course.
Sure.
Because we go out to the shows and, take people that had absolutely no experience with computers and teach them how to program with Logo.
Wow.
So with Logo, I got to work with the folks over at MIT who had developed it. We had downsized it. We had a programming group out of Montreal working on that. And then Atari Logo, we had the people from Dickerson, Pricilla Laws and her team. And we got to, make all the accessories. So, I mean, it was so much fun, but you got to do everything. I got to shop for the little light sticks out of a New Jersey company. I had to source them and get them private labeled and into little containers, like those big light sticks, but these were little miniature ones, so they were about an inch long. And that was one of the experiments. And we needed test tubes, plastic test tubes, and just a ton of different experiments we had to set up for each of the different modules that people could buy. And then Atari Logo, taking something from a huge computer and downsizing it into a 4K cartridge.
Right.
Was, everything was down at 4K at that point in time. So it was very challenging. I mean, I was there until we shut the doors. My manufacturing operation was actually there even after I was gone. And we had to source the cartridges and the plastic and get everything. And my manufacturing folks kept working because nobody knew they existed. I had taken people from other departments and put them together in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they were there for 2 to 3 months after I left because nobody knew. They were still on payroll. They got paid, but nobody knew they existed.
Wow. So which product was that? AtariLab or Logo that they were working on after you left?
I think it was actually both of them. They both came out. I think Atari Logo came out first, and AtariLab came out second.
So if you hadn't set up this, it sounds like if you hadn't set up your little secret bunker of people, then neither of those products would have come out after you left.
Correct. Because we had orders. We had, been out at trade shows, selling it, showing it, and we had orders that had to be filled. And I was going to make sure that those people got what they wanted. We would take enough inventory with us and sell it at the trade show, even though we weren't allowed to.
Nice.
I was 22 years old. I didn't care. Forget all the rest of the rules. It was so much fun.
You sounded sneaky. I mean, you're selling stuff on the side. You've got your secret workers doing your bidding. I like that.
Yeah, I went into accounting with credit cards and cash to account for what we sold, and they looked at me and said, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I said, "I don't care. This is what I sold. This is what you have to figure out. But we don't take credit cards or cash." I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you."
You do now. Nice.
So, yeah, we got to be very creative and resourceful.
That's awesome. So were you given the ideas for AtariLab and Logo from up high, or where did those concepts, or did you develop them? Where do the ideas for the products come from initially?
I believe I inherited both of them. There were other ones that we had worked on with the designers and developers, but both of those, which were all my award-winning software, the rest were games and other educational. I worked for the educational department for a while, and we had a lot of other ones, but these are the ones that definitely, made a mark in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. So you mentioned you worked on a bunch of smaller projects. I would love to talk about those, things that the smaller projects you worked on, whether they came out or not. I mean, maybe things you worked on that never came to fruition. Please tell me about those.
Yeah, there were a lot of different ones. I can't even remember. You're asking me 30-something years ago.
I get that answer a lot.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I'm sure I've got a ton of information. But it was, we put out a lot of different software through the educational group, through, what was it, the Apex group.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there was always a whole bunch that I was managing at one point in time.
So did you work with Dale Yoakum or Fred Thorlin over at Apex?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in every department. I was in finance for a while. I was, whoever had money, I felt like a little kid running around with a package trying to find a new home, with my clothes. And it's exactly how it would be. I would just say, this is the product I've got, this is what we're guaranteed, this is when it's coming out, can you cover my salary for a while? I'll manage the rest of it. And I was able to, find new homes on a regular basis. I mean, I'd be on the road at a trade show, and they'd say, okay, we're doing a layoff or we're moving, and I'd say, pack up my stuff and put a flag up and tell me where my new office is. And so by the, when we had so many times, by the time they shut the doors, that all I had to do was back up my truck and load my boxes that were already pre-packed.
Right.
So, I mean, we had the robots. Out of the stuff that I left with that I owned or didn't own, the one thing I regret was we left the poor robot there that we were working with for Atari Logo.
Was this like a robot that you'd hook up that would run around like the turtle on the screen, except a real robot?
Yeah, it was a big full-size robot that we could control through Atari Logo. We'd give it the simple commands like, right 5, left. We would teach people. Again, I was somebody who had absolutely no computer time at all. I didn't know how to program. I didn't do any of that. I sold all my time in college. And so Atari Logo was perfect, right up my alley. And it made it very simple for me to teach other people how to use it and how to learn how to program and how artificial intelligence worked.
Mm-hmm.
And we would take the big robot with us to the trade shows and show people how to make it work, or we had a turtle for our little cursor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we tell the turtle to take 5 steps left, 5 steps right, make a house. So we'd say house, and then you would give it the building blocks of how to make the house, and then teach it the word house. So it was all artificial intelligence used through Atari Logo.
Mm. Nice.
But in very layman's terms, in a very small amount of memory. And then we went to all the other programming languages from there grew that came out on Atari. So, I mean, there was just, tons of different products that we were able to put out in that period of time.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys did Pilot and Logo and different flavors of BASIC. And so I found the article that we were talking about on Antic Magazine was interesting. When I talked to Pricilla, I asked her, of course, AtariLab had the light module and the temperature module, and I said, hey, was anything else in the plan? She's like, no, we did not actually start working on anything else. And then, but this article says there's all sorts of hints about other things that were sort of being talked about, like a more accurate temperature module and maybe like radiation and other types of sensors. Can you remember any work or talk about other add-ons to the AtariLab?
We had probably about 10 different labs that were going to come out at one point in time or another. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said. I started buying all of these different accessories and things that we were going to use. For the light module, we were using the light stick. The temperature modules, we had the test tubes. I'm trying to think of which other ones were in queue next that we never got to. But, yeah, there was a whole rollout schedule and plan for all of these different products. Because coming out with something that was just a one-shot deal wasn't going to keep that product selling.
Right.
Or anything. And it was, the first type of science experiments that kids could actually do on their home computers.
Right.
So it was great. Did Pricilla tell you that her whole house 30 years ago was computer automated?
She mentioned a little bit about that she didn't get into details, but she said she had some sort of computer automation. What do you remember about it?
Oh, my God. I remember walking in there and just being totally amazed. I mean, in today's time, it's nothing. But she had computers in the kitchen, computers everywhere, and all of her sensors, all of her lights, her temperature, everything was all controlled by computer. And this was, 34 years ago.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was just totally amazing on what she did. And to see that at that point in time. And, and a lot of her pieces were based on what she did on a big scale, what we could bring down to a smaller scale, on a home computer for the kids to try.
Can you think of any products that would have been really cool but never came out? Just give me some example of something that you worked on that.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the AtariLab never made it to nearly what we were anticipating. I mean, again, that's the one where we had already put it in and won awards and the education marketplace.
Yeah.
What else did we have? God, I had so many balls in the air at that point in time.
Yeah.
But again, I'd have to really try and look through some notes to see what else we were in the middle of working on. I mean, the Atari Logo and Atari Labs are my two proud ones.
Yeah, those are good ones. That's
they
two
were
amazing
really
products.
good. I mean, we had a lot of games. We had a lot of everything educational, because I was with Apex when we pretty much shut everything down. But, I mean, we had bins. I had huge boxes of plastic beads that I had found.
Beads?
And we sent those out the plastic beads, and we sent those out to make the cartridges out of, because we couldn't get cartridges and stuff in from overseas. Shut down, we'd close down our manufacturing operations. So I just went around to all of these different places. I found a conveyor belt and an assembly line, and we just moved everything wherever we needed it to make all these products.
It's like you're working at a scrappy little startup, except it was like a multi-million-dollar company.
I saw those guys years later, the ones who had worked for me in the assembly line. And like I said, they had said they were there 3 months later before anybody realized that they were still working.
So how did your time at Atari come to an end? Were you laid off? Did you quit? Did you move on?
No, until we shut the doors. The day after the company was bought, and we all came in, and they had kept, something like 10 engineers, and the rest of us were all gone. And so I had a truck, and I loaded my stuff, and I loaded everybody else's stuff that day. We moved everybody out and just shut the door, and everything was, else sat there.
Yeah.
All of the property and everything was just there. And I had gone over to my guys in the manufacturing operation, and I said, you know what, they don't know you're here. Keep working until you don't get a paycheck anymore. I said, you've got orders to fill, ship the orders.
That's crazy.
And they did. And then somebody eventually, I guess, went around and looked at all the properties that we had, and when they had big sales, we'd go down and pick up filing cabinets or whatever else they were selling off of our stuff.
So you went and you bought back the stuff you were working on?
I bought back, I went down with the filing cabinets I think I needed for the house and some other things. But like I said, my biggest regret is I have no clue where that robot ever went. Because he would have been great to have. I mean, it was in a closet, locked in a closet somewhere, and it's just like, did they ever even find it? What happened to that poor thing?
Oh, poor guy.
I know.
Yeah. All right, what haven't I asked you yet that I should have?
Oh, God. I don't know. It was just, I don't think there's ever been any other companies like it, even with the new ones that are out there. It was just so much creativity and so much freedom and great people that just, continuously came up with new ideas and new products. And just a lot of people gave you a lot of leeway. Like I said, I was 22 years old and just really had opportunities that I don't think I ever would have had anyplace else.
Great.
It's hard thinking back 30-something years of what everything was like day to day, but it was fun. Those are the days where if you didn't actually store whatever you were working on, it really got lost quickly.
Well, this is great. I think I have what I need. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thanks. Have a great day.
All right.
If you enjoyed these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.